less on this one and just let the gameplay speak a little bit more. I was also leveling up throughout the DLC still. This is the base game fights. I was doing this not as a challenge run, but just trying to sprint through the game as quickly as I could. I think the base game around 11. And then as I was going through the DLC, I continued to level up bosses. Scatter-tree level. So here I'm just starting with Malekith. Using the Guardian Sword Spear with Ice Spear. It's pretty easy. I could have also done Spear. But it breaks quite easily in both phases. And my Spear is the perfect tool. This fight took, I think, and my stats were really good. I was level 99 for this one. I had the Shard of Alexander by this point. So my end game, this is my end game level 111. I was using Morgoth's Cursed Sword against Millennia because I really like the gap closing and the poise damage it does to her. You'll see it a lot. This is still a decently hard fight, always. Strategy speaks for itself. And I was wearing the Silver Tear mask just to give myself the arcane stat to be able to wield the Cursed Sword. I like this weapon. It looks awesome. Here's my and you'll see that Ash of War there can lock her up. Sometimes she gets some hyper armor from her moves and can get out of it, but it's easy enough because it's a you need 2 inputs to do the full Ash of War, so you can just not do the second one and get away from her. So I thought it was really perfect for this fight. The only time I think I had an easier time with her, other than when I was just over leveled, was using the Rivers of Blood on my arcane character, Griffith. Rivers of Blood is just really good. It's really good for this fight. It locks her up and does a double slash and bleeds her a lot, but this was pretty similar to that strategy, just not quite as overpowered of a weapon. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing the run this way, kind of trying to keep to lower levels in the base game. Obviously, by the time it ended, I was still around level 110, so not like you know, a streamer level of talent, but pretty low level for me. Definitely the lowest I've beaten the game at. And I definitely had to learn a lot more about the bosses. I've beaten them all so many times, and yet I still realized I kind of have been over leveled every time I played this game, because when I wasn't over leveled and when I wasn't using a lot of Scatter-tree fragments, I had a lot of learning to do. There were a lot of nuances in a lot of these boss fights that I hadn't appreciated, that I learned on this playthrough. So I feel like this was not necessarily my most fun playthrough, because I do enjoy being overpowered, but it was definitely my most instructive playthrough. I learned all the bosses really well, most of the bosses really well, particularly in the DLC. Some of my favorite bosses, Putrescent Knight, Midra. I no-hit Midra, and I nearly no-hit the Putrescent Knight. I actually thought I did, but we'll get there. It was a joy, really, to learn those bosses as intricately as I now know them, and I hadn't really had to learn them when I was doing tons of damage and nothing was really killing me. But on this character, with the low level and the low Scatter-tree fragment level, I was nearly getting one shot, so I basically had to no-hit most of the bosses, or at least a lot of the bosses, in order to just beat them. And so having that level of punishment if you make a mistake is you really have to learn things very well, and that was a lot of fun. Very gratifying to finally feel like I got to that level. So coming up here towards the end of the Millennia fight, once I get her down to about a quarter health on her second phase, I always start panicking. So you'll see I probably didn't do as well as I could have in the end here, but always happy to get a win against Millennia. She's not an easy boss. She's not a guaranteed win. You know, even when you're overpowered, you still can lose to her for hours and hours. So I'm always happy with a W against Millennia. And at this point, I was out of cerulean flasks, and so the Ash of War, which does a lot of work for me in this fight, because it does gap closing and it can lock her into a damage, you know, an attack animation where you can get a couple thousand damage on her. Without that, this fight is hard. So here, you know, the rest of this fight, I'm just straight up meleeing her. And yeah, I've got her really close now, and she does this clone attack, which is, for me, the hardest attack to dodge. I think this is even harder than Waterfowl, although it doesn't kill you if you mess it up. Waterfowl pretty much instantly kills you if you mess it up, so I guess maybe Waterfowl was harder, but I was nervous that I wasn't going to make it out on a really good attempt, but I did, so I'm happy with that one. Quickly, here's my setup. I was essentially doing a Moog cosplay, I guess, because I was Morgoth cosplay, because I was using his sword and his robes, but yeah, my focus here in the Captain Levi character was Dexterity, using quick attacks. Here we have the Moog fight. I was using dual Bandit Curve swords, both in Blood Affinity. I didn't have a ton of Arcane, so the blood wasn't amazing, but Curved swords just have so much blood buildup because they hit 4 times, and I basically did a jump attack build. I essentially cheesed Moog here. He goes down pretty quickly here. You'll see he didn't get to phase 2, and I'm not even at that crazy of a level. I think I'm 116. I used Blue Dancer Charm, which is a strategy I used later on in the DLC as well. And wearing nothing or wearing very little, and then doing your buffs and then unequipping them, you get a big damage boost from Blue Dancer Charm. So I like that strategy. I think I'm going to do that a little bit more often going forward now. Like, for instance, right now I'm playing a fist run, using just the Iron Balls or maybe just the Star Fists. And I think Blue Dancer Charm will be really good there, because I can be essentially just naked and use the fists and have very low equip load. Okay, so into the DLC now. I took on Divine Beast and Rolana at Scattershoot level 3. I continued leveling up, so I was level 121 at this point. And here I'm using essentially my Millennia setup. I think this was maybe the same night that I beat Millennia. So I, love that gap closing. I had to learn the Divine Beast a lot better than I did. I still didn't no-hit him. I still don't think I'm capable of it. I mean, of course I'm capable of it, but I'm like gonna try to no-hit him. But I did a lot better than I ever have before, and only made a couple mistakes. Definitely wasn't a perfect fight, but I'm pretty happy with it. So here, I'll let you enjoy the soundtrack. Oh yeah, and I discovered that in the lightning phase, you essentially just have to avoid until he moves out of the lightning phase. It happened there, and it happens again. I try to attack him during his transition, and I just get bolted out of there. So the lightning phase to me isn't very fun, because you're essentially just avoiding him. But I really like the wind phase and the frost phase. there is time number 2 when I got lightninged by him. Really don't like the lightning phase, but you live and you learn. Obviously you can't attack the lightning transition. A couple bad rolls here in the frost phase. You'll see I'm really not doing a whole lot of damage, and I'm really taking quite a bit of damage, so it took a lot more kind of mental stamina to get these fights out of the way in this DLC playthrough. But I ended up pulling this one out. Love the Ash of War. Also, I just like the animation. It looks really cool. It's pretty similar to the incantation you get at the end of the DLC, the Furious Blade of Onsbach, but it's just attached to a really cool sword. And ended up getting him by the skin of my teeth. Love it when you get hit right at the same time you kill a boss. I think it just looks kind of cool. I was out of flasks, but good fight. Next up, we have one of the best fights in the DLC. Mesmer is really, really fun, and I used the backhand blade, which ends up making another appearance later. I leveled up the Erdtree level 6 for the rest of the bosses other than Promise Consort, and here I was essentially just using backhand blade, which is a really cool Ash of War, where you do kind of a double step, and the first step has iframes, you'll see it right here, a step, and then you attack. Well, you couldn't see it through the explosion. But it's really good for this fight and for another fight later. Actually, it's good for a lot of fights. It looks really cool. To my mind, it's perfect Captain Levi. You're really quick, you're dashing out of the way of things. And it does really good damage, particularly the Shard of Alexander. So it's a cool way to, if you know a boss fight pretty well, get in a lot of extra damage. And that was crucial on this playthrough when I didn't have a lot of, damage. So I didn't have, if you can essentially double your punish opportunities, because you can not just dodge, but you can dodge and do damage at the same time, and then often get another hit in. So you're getting a lot more damage with the backhand blades. I think they're borderline overpowered. I think they're so cool. And I was using Blood Flame Blade to get a little bit of bleed buildup to get through phase 1 a little bit quicker. Phase 2 I don't think is that hard. Of course I say it right as I make a mistake. Got a little greedy there. But yeah, I wasn't so worried about phase 2. It's more phase 1 I have a little bit of trouble with. But once he starts doing all these snake moves, they're pretty easy to dodge. And then he's open to punishment for a long time after them. So I get it right here, I think, after a snake move, because he just sits there for a minute inside the snake, so you can just hit him. And so yeah, great fight, really good weapon, and I ended up using them against the Promise Consort later. And they are still a tough fight, but they are really cool in that fight, and you'll see dashing around this giant. This is really fun to watch. So the reason I did Mesmer before Gaius is because I had this idea to use the Spear of the Impaler that you get from Mesmer's Remembrance against Gaius. The R2 is a spear throw, and it does trash damage, admittedly, but I just liked the way it looked. I thought it was pretty cool to, I don't know, I felt like I was hunting a boar. So you see, I was throwing a spear when he would dash away, because I do think you really need a good ranged option against Gaius. He runs away so much. And I really got to know his moveset pretty well. I think I could no-hit him. I didn't. You'll see in a minute I make a mistake, and then it just kind of compounds for a minute before I recover, and then essentially no-hit his phase 2. But yeah, if you stay in close, he's actually a really fun fight. His moves are really well telegraphed. There's nothing that's impossible to dodge, or really even that hard to dodge. The hardest thing to dodge is his charge, which he only really does if you're far away. But if you stay in close, it's not that hard. This is one that I didn't quite figure out. I sometimes dodged it, but then sometimes his last sword attack got me, so I'm not 100% sure how to reliably dodge that one. And then you see I just kind of got in a funk. So he hits me a few times, but I recovered right around here. He luckily dashed away, gave me some time to heal up and get my bearings back. So I'll just be quiet for the rest of the fight, because it really is, you've seen the entire strategy by now. I just dodge, attack, and then when he runs away, throw a spear at him. I guess one more note to say is, this weapon is not that good, honestly. It doesn't do good damage. Its moveset is not that good, and its charged R2 is a total waste. It does really bad damage, really bad poise damage, and just shreds your stamina bar. So I used the Green Turtle Talisman, and I can't remember, I think I also used the Stamina Physic, and that's a necessity. I enjoyed this fight. I don't think I would recommend this build, though. It's just not that good, frankly. So, okay, I'll let you enjoy the rest of the fight. It's almost over. okay and got the riposte to beat him. Decent fight, pretty fun. I don't hate this boss. I used to, but I like him now. This playthrough taught me a lot. Okay, so against the Putrescent Knight, I really wanted to no-hit this guy, and I actually thought I did. I got a hit in this video that I noticed when I was rewatching it, and I somehow didn't see it happening. So I went with the holy build against him, the Halo Scythe, and then bumped up my holy damage with the Holy Tear and the Faith Tear and the Holy Scorpion Charm. And then otherwise, I just know his moves pretty well. I gotta say, this is the first time I decided to commit to trying to do a no-hit, and the difference between beating a boss, like really beating a boss with like one hit, or like with no heals or something, like my Mesmer fight was no heals, the difference between that and actually no-hitting is like so huge. I got this guy down to like very low HP with one hit so many times, and then just had to let him kill me because I was committed to doing a no-hit. And the difference between making one or two mistakes and making no mistakes is massive. So you can beat this boss with way less work, but I spent hours on him again to make no mistakes. And yet, watching the video back, I realized I did make a mistake. It happens in just a second, so he's transitioning to his phase 2, and I knocked off a bunch of rings of light, and then he has 3 fires that you jump over, and then after the third one I drink a flask, and I just didn't even notice that I got hit because I was getting ready to drink my blue flask and finish him off. So I accidentally killed him with a hit, which is annoying. But it was a dumb hit, like it was the fire, and the jump was arguable. I don't know, watching it back, I don't understand how it hit me. I did the same jump 100 times and he didn't hit me, so I'm calling it a no-hit, but it wasn't technically. But here is a no-hit. I was able to no-hit Midra, who's probably my favorite boss in the DLC, using this awesome weapon called the Sword of Night. I start off with the Ash of War. There's a charged and an uncharged version. I use the charged version against the little guy. So cool, very Levi. Reminds me of Levi attacking the Beast Titan outside of Shiganshina. So I took a long time to learn this fight, perfected the moveset. I have a feeling I could no-hit him on all of my characters on level 1. I have his moves completely memorized. And I went with a light roll because there's one move where he does a double swipe followed by another double swipe. And I didn't actually like test it on a medium roll, but it seemed to me like a medium roll wouldn't be fast enough to dodge the first of the 2 double swipes. So I went with a light load just for the cloth trousers, so that I would be able to dodge that move reliably. I'll point it out when it comes up, but otherwise, enjoy the fight. My first no-hit. So here's the double swipe. He swipes. Okay, so I guess he doesn't always double swipe followed by double swipe. He sometimes does the fire slash, but that first double swipe, they're right in quick succession, and 2 medium rolls in a row I don't think are fast enough to escape both swipes. So I light rolled, but in any case, back to the fight. And there you have it, the no-hit on Midra. Again, the difference between beating a boss and beating a boss without a heal or with 1 or 2 hits is not actually that big, but then the difference between beating a boss with no heals or with 1 or 2 hits and no hitting a boss is massive. I noticed a huge difference. I got hit once 100 times. But yeah, anyway, I didn't even bother trying to no-hit Promise Consort. That said, you almost have to because he does so much damage. I leveled my Scatter Fragments up to 12. At this point, I had reached level 150 and I stopped leveling up. Mainly put points into Dexterity, enough faith to use the Spear of the Impaler, which I didn't end up needing to use much more because I realized it wasn't that great, so I might restack and take some of those points away. And used the Backhand Blades against Promise Consort, mostly because a lot of his attacks you can get extra hits in, sort of in between the combos if you use the Blind Spot Ash of War, like right here, Blind Spot, you get an extra hit in there, and then you also get the Punish at the end. So that was my approach here. This was actually, I did this the day that patch 1.14 came out, so his fight got, in my opinion, fixed. Like the double slash that happened a minute ago is now dodgeable. You can react to it and not just try to predict it and not get frame trapped. So I think it's a much improved fight, and I'm happy with the patch. And he's certainly still not easy. This still took me forever. Very hard boss. Couple notes on strategy. I used the Blue Dancer charm and did the same thing I did for Moog and took off my buffs after I buffed myself with them. Second thing I decided to do was save my Physic for phase 2. So after I evade the AoE, I drink my Physic, and the reason why is the one of the tiers I have in there is the Opaline Ard tier, which is the damage reduction tier, and I needed that for phase 2, or else he could one-shot me with this combo right here. The only reason I survived that is because of the Opaline Ard tier. That is like the new double slash. I can't escape it, and it comes out so fast, and I just get stun locked. But in any case, that ended up working out. Once I stopped drinking my Physic for phase 1 and waited until phase 2 for the Physic, I think it only took me 4 or 5 more tries. I was also obviously very locked in by that point because I had been doing it for like 2 hours in a row after my kid went to sleep. So yeah, I'll just let you watch the rest of the fight. I got a little lucky, had a decent strategy, and it finally worked out. It took goddamn forever. The coolest thing is, you'll see at the end of this fight, he does a combo where I get to do several blind spots in a row, so it looks like Levi is just like gliding around the arena, attacking him, which is just the perfect, looks like a guy killing a Titan, basically. So, I'll let you watch. Was gliding around him, and then doing the last roll and hit, took him out. Really tough fight. I think it is a lot better with the patch. Don't let anybody tell you that not being in pre-patch makes you any less, because he was just stupid before. I realized I could have used the upgraded Green Turtle Talisman. There is an improved one in the DLC. I didn't even think about it. I didn't grab it on this character. I was kind of just boss rushing. And yeah, there you have it. Really fun playthrough. Final stats. Scatter level 12.